Real quick poll, show of hands. How many people out there in my audience remember the story from Aesop's Fables about the boy who cried wolf? I'm sure a lot of people do. But what if I told you that there's a different version of this story that keeps a lot of folks, especially in military intelligence, up awake at night? What if the boy wasn't lying? Meaning that what if the wolves were just smarter than all of the townsfolk put together? For those of you who don't know about the story, it's a boy. He's in charge of a flock of sheep and allegedly just gets bored one day and decides to cry wolf when there really is no wolf, and the townspeople come running and he has a good laugh, and then he does it again, and then eventually, after a couple times, the people stop coming, and then a wolf comes along and eats the boy and eats the sheep. And the moral of the story is, don't make up stories about things just to get attention. Well, the version that keeps military intelligence up at night is that what if the boy saw a wolf, overreacted, and then the wolf ran off before the townspeople got there and they saw no wolf. And then they left. And then the wolf came back and the same thing happened. And the wolf, being very intelligent, learned, hey, eventually those people aren't going to come. And lo and behold, that was the case. The boy was left on his own, having seen a wolf, having perceived a threat, but when everybody else came, there wasn't one. Florida Maquis, what does this have to do with anything? Cool story. Do wolves like sheep? Well, of course they do. Every person in the town knew that wolves like sheep. So the idea of a wolf or a group of wolves threatening their flock of sheep is the entire reason they had a shepherd to begin with. You see, wolves are smart. That's why they run in packs. That's why they don't take risky chances. And they play the long game. There are those out there right now playing the long game with the American people and the U.S. government. There's an allegation out there now that some of these drone flights over New Jersey are radiation detecting sniffer drones that after the sun goes down, for some reason, it's easier to detect radiation. These things are flying low looking for a bomb or looking for some fissionable material that could be used to create a bomb. And that's why they're being so tight-lipped about it. Now, this goes all the way back to the Cold War. We used to worry about this all the time back in the 80s. But it was a different kind of worry. The issue is this. The townspeople have to show up every single time, regardless of whether or not they think the boy is yanking their chain or not. When it comes to nuclear weapons, you have to look at every threat as if it's a real threat. When you're the one in charge of keeping the sheep safe. Now, here's the problem. There are a lot of people out there who are crying wolf that are saying this is this, this is that, this is the other, that don't really have any understanding of what a nuclear weapon is. If you showed up in somebody's garage and they showed you this and said it was a nuclear weapon and you pulled out your handy-dandy Amazon Geiger counter and all of a sudden it started showing readings, I'm sure you would believe in your heart there was a threat there. You wouldn't be lying. But there's a million things that you could put inside a fake prop, and just to be clear, this is a fake prop. What you're looking right here is something Hollywood ginned up to look real, and you could put anything in it you wanted to set it off a Geiger counter. There's dozens of things out there, and somebody who didn't know, who wasn't in the know, would think, oh my God, I just saw a nuclear weapon in New Jersey. And they wouldn't be lying to you. They would just be using the limited amount of information they have that radioactive material sets off Geiger counters, and gosh, that looks like a bomb. Do you see what's happening? You see the boy, when he saw the wolf way out on the tree line, just one of them, and he has a flock of 100 sheep, being a boy, reacted like a boy. One might ask, if you had a herd of 100 sheep that were so valuable, why would you only leave one boy in charge? Why wouldn't you put 4 or 5 armed men out there with whatever arms they had in the story? I mean, I get what Aesop was trying to say, but in certain situations, things aren't always so cut and dried. Wolves can blend back into a forest in a matter of seconds, and you'd never know they were there. But they were there, and they do like sheep, and they're playing the long game. A herd of sheep can feed a pack of wolves for a very, very long time. And they'll come back with friends eventually. And you're very likely not going to see them until it's too late. And that all applies to this. With all of this nonsense going on about, they're sniffing for this, they're sniffing for that, they're doing this and doing that. What's the government supposed to do? What are they supposed to do? If it is the case that they do have some intelligence, that there's fissionable material inside the United States, you're never going to find it. Like, there's millions of things. The one thing I think they're trying to rule out are cosmic ray bursts from the sun. That's why they're putting these things up at night. Now, there's still cosmic ray bursts from other parts of the galaxy, so, they're looking for a needle in a haystack, if this is the case. But one way or the other, if you knew about it, or you didn't know about it, or if it was true, or if it wasn't true, they would still have to react the same way, wouldn't they? They would still have to react the same way, wouldn't they? How many of you remember the story from back in World War II when we were trying to kind of get inside the head of the Germans? We created all sorts of inflatable props and put them all over different places so that their spy planes from above would look down and say, oh, there's that huge, battalion of tanks over there. There's that huge camp set up over there. And it was all props. The real soldiers were in other places. Now, was the guy in the spy plane lying? No. He was reporting what he saw. How many of you remember back when you could get these? This is a water gun, by the way. These are water guns from way back in the day. And the reason you didn't see anybody getting offed by police officers is because if you pulled one of these things out back in the 80s, no police officer in his right mind would believe that an 11-year-old somehow had access to an Uzi. They would know immediately it was a water gun back then. But in the modern world now, because everybody wants everything to be available to everybody all the time, now cops have to take this seriously. So as much as these men are criminals in Washington, D.C., especially regarding the current spending nonsense, they don't have a choice but to stay quiet and act as if it's a real threat. If there is one. Because any report that somebody would say, and I've seen it on the news, some guy said, I was in this place and I can't tell you where I was, but I actually saw one of the 90 weapons that gone missing in Ukraine, and it's somewhere here in the Western Hemisphere, and I know we're going to... Most people would not know. Even those who would know would have to take the damn thing apart and see if it's not a prop. Even those who would know the interworkings, the incredibly complex interworkings of how a nuclear weapon is put together, would have to probably take the damn thing apart and say, okay, this is a fake, this is a fraud, this is a phony. They've got a little piece of this material over here that sets off Geiger counters, and they're trying to fake somebody out. But wouldn't you have to take this seriously to begin with? I mean, they say call the bomb squad, right? Remember all the reports? If you see one of these things shot down, call the bomb squad, call the bomb squad. Do you know how many fake things that the bomb squad deals with every day that they have to treat as if they are real? They have to treat it as if they are real. Just like what happened to the boy was the fault of the townspeople. Some people want to blame the boy, but you have to take every warning seriously. Depending, I guess, on how important the sheep are. Or you replace the boy, one of the two, or you put 2 boys out there, or 3 boys out there, or 4 boys out there. However you want to do it, them not responding, them eventually not responding, was not the act of a rational person. Maybe it was a raccoon that he thought was a wolf. You can't take the chance. You can't take the chance on this when it comes to what we're talking about. So I will leave it there. For those of you who joined us at Patreon, thank you very, very much. Very much appreciate it. We're going to have a brand new video up coming this weekend. Probably Friday night, Saturday sometime. And it's going to be, the last video we did was for everybody. It was for the $1, $5, $10, and $15, all everybody. This one's going to be next level up. Need to know roundtable. And of course, as always, $10, $15 brigade and unit commanders. You can sit in as well. Love to have you over there. But I just wanted to cover this because once again, I wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. A lot of very educated people wouldn't know just by looking at something, even if they walked in with a Geiger counter and the Geiger counter went off. Do you know how many different things set off Geiger counters? You're going to set off a Geiger counter if you go get different procedures done at hospitals. There's some people that they aren't even allowed to go back into work because they're throwing off so much radiation because of procedures, medical procedures. There's a dozen different things out there that can set off a Geiger counter. You would have to be someone who knows very specifically what to look for to say, okay, this thing can go boom. So I will leave it there. But I think the two stories dovetail together very nicely. And given how much fake stuff is out there, once again, when you've got people's lives at stake and you look down and you see a battalion of tanks, the first thing you're not going to think is, oh, they're inflatable. Oh, those are inflatable. Not back then. They had to react the way they did simply because they had to. There was, in the 1980s, 1970s, and 80s, there was, well, I'm not going to get into this. I think you guys get the idea. The way police react differently now than they did back then has to do with the fact that weapons like this are now available to just pretty much everyone. Whereas back then, they were virtually available to nobody. And so the cops didn't react as if their lives were threatened. If some kid came out and aimed something like this at him, they were like, okay, that's a fake. There's no way an 11-year-old kid is going to have an Uzi. It's just not, they're just not that widely available. So at least they weren't then in the United States. Now, just saying. I will leave it there. So once again, God bless. Thank you all very, very much. Very much appreciate the support. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. See you guys next time.